golf has been my passion ever since I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
So I never saw it as an investment. I saw it as a way for me to make a living out of something that I really loved, like on an everyday basis.
Do you think you're able to still keep the passion and enjoyment, or when it became a job, did you feel you lost any of that kind of love of the game?
No, I never really felt like I lost the love of the game. As I told you a bit earlier, I realized quickly that there are some bad days where you don't want to go. But this is a good realization, right? Because it makes you understand that whenever you do a job that's not your passion, it's also okay to have some bad days. And it doesn't push you too much to thrive towards, that saying, like, do work in whatever you love and you'll never work a day anymore in your life. But that's not true.
You will.
You will. Like, there are going to be some days where even if you're a painter, you've always wanted to paint, there are going to be some days where it's work. And I quickly realized that, which was, to be honest, very helpful afterwards, when I decided to quit that career path and to try to move to something else.
Hi, my name is Ronan Kennedy and I'm a career coach and podcast host. I'm interviewing people from various different careers, industries and backgrounds to find out what they do, how they got into it, and what they like or dislike about their roles. So whether you're a seasoned professional looking for some inspiration, or whether you're a new grad looking for some ideas and options, this podcast has something for you. So join us every week as we delve into the world of work, share personal and professional development tips, and uncover the secrets to a fulfilling career. Today, I'm joined with my good friend, Philippe Jost, who's very kindly taken time out of his busy schedule to chat to us today about his career. Philippe, thanks so much for popping in to chat.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you for having me.
Before, when I was thinking about chatting to you today, I promised myself I wouldn't speak any sort of French or even try any sort of pronunciation. So that's my gift to you straight away.
Whatever makes you comfortable. Okay.
Merci bien.
That's perfect. That's good. That's good.
So could you kick us off by telling us a little bit about your career history so far?
Well, where do I start? So I started my professional career as a golf professional. 20 years ago, a bit more than 20 years ago now, 23 years ago. I wasn't really good at school. Well, actually, I was really good at school, but I wasn't good at working in school. So as long as school didn't involve too much work, I did fine. And then after what we call the bac in France, which is basically the end of high school, I realized that I needed a bit of work, and that scared me a little. And I was also quite conscious that I'm not very good at that. So I kind of tried to find a solution. Went to university, picked something that was called MIAS, which was math, IT, and science and application to sciences, which sounded really, really fun. And like the first day, I discovered that they wanted us all to become math teachers, which was absolutely out of the equation.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Out of the equation. I like that.
Long story short, didn't attend the classes too much. Wasn't really happy with it. And then after maybe a year, less than a year, I decided that I wanted to try to become a golf professional. I've been playing golf ever since I was like 8 or 9 years old, at a time where in France, golf was not as popular as it is here in Ireland. So it became quite easy to be good when you were that age because there was not that many kids. And then after that, when you're taken in charge, take lessons, and that age, you kind of develop quickly enough. And then I was fooled into believing that I could become the next Tiger Woods. So I tried, at least. I tried for 2 years. Didn't really do it. Went back to school, went back to the university to study economics and finance. Lasted 3 years.
Okay.
So that was more than the first try. Realized after 3 years that it was not what I wanted to do anyway. Okay. Went back to golf. And then got a degree for being a golf teacher and a golf trainer. And I kind of balanced that for 6 years after that between teaching and playing, more teaching than playing, because I realized very quickly that I wasn't talented enough to make a lot of money by playing.
I was going to ask you, what's it like trying to be a golf professional? Like, are you waking up and spending 3 hours on the driving range, or?
It depends on who you are as a person. But yeah, it's pretty much like a working day. And it was actually quite interesting to realize that although golf was my passion and I was trying to turn my passion into my job, there are some days where you don't want to go to the driving range to hit some balls. But yeah, the day was basically show up at the golf course around between 8:30 and 9 a.m., train, depending on what your training program was. There wasn't that much fitness. We're talking about like 20 years ago. So golfers were not as fit as what they are today, at least some of them. But there was still a bit of fitness. There was a bit of breathing techniques and stuff like that. So I had a coach, had some consultants that helped me on other stuff, the mental aspect and everything. And then you went out to the course, so played 9 holes or 18 holes, and then work on some stuff, and then do it all over again the next day until you got a tournament.
And were you like aiming toward, did you have like a roadmap for, if I get to this level, then I can get into that tournament, earn some prize money, and then I can invest that in coaching and try to get to the next tournament? Or is it just like, how does that?
So the first step when you're an amateur, basically you had what they call the cards, so which is basically like an exam. So it's like the entry level. So you sign up for that, gives you access. If you pass that exam, which is actually a tournament, gives you access to like the third division, like the third or fourth tier of professional golf. And then once you get through that, then you've got your season on that level. And if you manage to make it to the top 5, top 10, depending on the tours, then you move up, or you can move down if you finish in the bottom part of it. So it's pretty much like a very meritocracy kind of thing. Yeah. But the first step is like the lower tiers tournaments, and in French we call it cards. I don't know if that translates pretty much, but like a qualifying tournament for the tour for the next season. Right, so basically, the first time I gave myself 2 years to actually get access to that, and but I got injured. The whole story will last for 6 hours, and I don't think we have 6 hours of recording, but basically injuries and stuff like that kind of made me rethink my way around it. Never actually ended up having any kind of category on any tour. So you try to scrap, get some invites and play in some tournaments and hope that those invites will get you an invite to the next one. Never really paid out for me. And I ended up, as I told you, coaching and teaching most of the time. Until I was about 30 years old. So I did that for almost 10 years. Wow. And I realized that being a golf teacher is something that you do your whole life. So basically there's no evolution.
No progression.
So you're basically a golf teacher from day one until day 3000. And I've always been a bit more ambitious than that. And so I quickly realized that, that was fun, but I'd like to have a career where I can actually create a path and not just do the same job for 30, 35, 40, 45 years, like some of those very respected golf teachers do.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's still a huge investment that you put into it to do it all the way up to 30, right?
Yeah. As I said, golf has been my passion ever since I was like 8 or 9 years old. Yeah. So I never saw it as an investment. I saw it as a way for me to make a living out of something that I really loved, like on an everyday basis.
Do you think you're able to still keep the passion and enjoyment, or when it became a job, did you feel you lost any of that kind of love of the game?
No, I never really felt like I lost the love of the game. As I told you a bit earlier, I realized quickly that there are some bad days where you don't want to go. But this is a good realization, right? Because it makes you understand that whenever you do a job that's not your passion, it's also okay to have some bad days. And it doesn't push you too much to thrive towards, that saying, like, do work in whatever you love and you'll never work a day anymore in your life. That's not true.
You will.
You will. Like, there are going to be some days where even if you're a painter, you've always wanted to paint, there are going to be some days where it's work. And I quickly realized that, which was, to be honest, very helpful afterwards, when I decided to quit that career path and to try to move to something else.
So you get to about age 30, you're thinking, I need to do something else. What's your thought process then? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Are you thinking, how do I go from golf to
It was crazy because it didn't really happen just like that. So basically I was at the end of the cycle in the place where I worked. And so I thought, well, it's the summer. I'm going to take a couple months off, spend some time in Bretagne where we have a family house and where I love to spend some time. And then mid-August, I will send a few resumes to the golf courses around where I live. And because I'm such a superstar, people will call me from all over the place. Turns out I was not. Turns out nobody called me.
Humbling.
Yeah, very, very humbling. I realized very quickly that I wasn't as wanted on the market as I thought I would be. And then after that, and after those struggles, came that kind of, well, okay, let's take that as an opportunity maybe to explore some other things in life. But because of my struggles, academic struggles, let's put them like that, I didn't really have a degree or anything. So I applied for just like any regular job, like in every kind of business that I could find. And I spent like probably 6 months unemployed without any interview, like none. I sent like, I don't know, maybe 150 resumes, no interviews.
Wow.
I wish I knew you back then,
Yeah,
because you could have helped me. But I was like 0 for 150, and I was starting to feel a little bit depressed. It was not easy. I was living with my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, and it was a bit stressful because she was working, I was not. Yeah, and not the best of time, to be honest. Like very humbling again, to realize that you feel much smarter than some of the jobs that you think is well, at least some of the skills that is required for low entry level jobs. Because I wasn't targeting at being a trader straight away. Like, let's be very clear. Like even to work in a sports job or anything like that, didn't get the interview. So like very, very humbling. And in the end, I got a call from a friend of a friend that was working in that IT company called Computer Center, saying that they were looking for some schedulers. So the schedulers are the one that actually, when you have a maintenance contract for your IT, they are the one that answer the phone when the user is calling to say that he has an issue, and they are the ones that call the user to plan when the engineer is going to come and change your laptop or change your screen or whatever. So that was really, once again, a low entry level job. And I got that opportunity. It was the first one in 6 months. So there was no way that I'm going to turn it down or be picky about it. And I started like that. And 12 years after, I'm still in the same company, not a scheduler anymore, but yeah, that was what helped me make the jump, is that opportunity that I had through this friend that I'm still very grateful to. Because I felt like I could have stayed stuck for a long time.
It's interesting, isn't it? Right, the 150 applications, and then the one contact or the one person in your network. It kind of shows you the power, and it shows you the power of the network. But also, when people say to me, 100 applications, 100, or even just 50 applications, it's also like, it's not a reflection on you. Often it's a reflection on the application.
Yeah, and bear in mind, once again, it was like almost 15 years ago, so it was less automated than what it is today. I feel like it's probably even worse today, right? Like half of the applications, when you send out your CV, I guess it's just looking for keywords and moving on to the next one if you don't have those keywords. This was 15 years ago, so it was not the case yet. So you feel like at some point there were human beings behind, like reading the CV. So that was like, shit, that's a tough one. And you talk about the network, which I think that the depth of the network is even more important, because it was a friend of a friend, not even a friend of mine, right? And I felt like this was quite powerful, because sometimes you feel like your network about the people that you know and the people that you can reach out, but opening that to the second level, to maybe the third level, I feel also is very important, because sometimes the opportunities come from outside of yourself.
Yeah, it's super. Like, sometimes I would say to people, have you asked your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or girlfriend or something? And they'd say, well, they work in they're a carpenter, or they work in a flower shop. I'm like, yeah, but they might know some other people as well, right? It's not like you're looking for that exact job.
That's the exact example. So basically, the friend that I had was working in a golf shop, so he knew me from the golf, and the friend that he had was a friend / customer coming to see him. So basically, the golf also was the intermediary between the relationship, which had nothing to do with the job. Once again,
so ironically, golf got you
a
job.
It definitely did. Definitely did.
Do you feel golf has helped your career by building relationships?
Yeah, in so many ways that it's difficult to describe the whole thing. The first thing that I would say is that because I started very young, and because, as I said earlier, when you start young, you kind of tend to get better quickly, and then you tend to play with adults and stuff like that. So basically, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I spent all my Saturdays afternoon and all my Sunday afternoon for 4 or 5 hours with adults. So that teaches you a lot about interpersonal skills. You don't realize it at first, but yeah, that teaches you a lot about how to adapt, how to be able to answer to anyone, not to be intimidated by any kind of person or anything like that. I still believe that today, whenever I meet anyone, it could be the head of the planet, I wouldn't be embarrassed, because when I was 12 years old, I was just spending hours with people that obviously were higher up the chain than I was. And you realize that they're just normal people, that most of the time it's just about being a good person. And it doesn't matter if they're high up or not. How they interact with you also when you're a kid tells a lot about how they are as a person. So yeah, this is one thing that definitely helped.
That definitely stood to you. I definitely even find, I've always thought golf, the game itself, is a great teacher. I mean, definitely my situation, because I find it very humbling.
Yeah, it is. I find it very humbling too.
I miss so many shots, and
it's a game. It's a game of misses, right? It's just about when you play like between 75 and 100 shots, when depending on your level, over 18 holes,
a little bit more,
and sometimes a bit more. If you play like a couple of shots that are really good exactly as you planned it, then it's a good result. No matter if you aim for 75 shots or if you aim for 110, like that ratio, that number is still true. So that's one thing. And also because although I wasn't very successful to the level that I tried to be successful at, I still got successful enough that my name in the French golf world was known enough for people to still, as of today, tell me. And I had the example just a couple of weeks ago at a work thing where somebody in my company that I'd never seen, that I didn't know, told me, "Oh yes, I know you. I know you. I've seen you on internet." I said, like, what? About what? Yeah, you used to play golf. I said, 15 or 20 years ago, right? So this is also, this facilitates a lot of stuff. And I remember, it has nothing to do with the job, but I remember when we were, I was in those years when I was still teaching, trying to get an apartment with a couple of friends, sharing an apartment. We didn't have a lot of income or anything like that. And the landlord used to play golf at the golf where I played when I was a kid. And when he saw my name, it's okay, you can have your apartment. Didn't need the guarantees anymore.
Very good. See, you've got to look back at that experience trying to become a pro with fondness, because it has given you, well, it didn't give you directly anything. It gave you so many, like, you got a lot of trust, you got opportunities, you got good network, you learned how to have relationship building skills, right?
Deal with failure also.
Right.
Yeah. It's a, as you said, it's a humbling experience, and it's a great, but it's true for golf, but I guess it's true for any kind of individual sport, like, it's different for team sports because you play with your age category, but individual sport, very quickly, when you become good, even at a young age, you play against adults and you spend time with adults at whether it's, I don't know, tennis or any kind of individual sport, as long as there's no categories and everybody plays at the same time, or at least you play with any kind of people. I feel like it's a great help. It's a great help.
Do you feel what you learned by aiming for pro, do you think that kind of level of high performance, where you're aiming to be a high performer, you're aiming to shoot really well, do you think that you were able to transfer that into companies? Because it's something I always try to get high performers when they come to me. I'm like, if you can show you're a high performer here, it's easier for us to show you're a high performer in work as well, because typically
I feel like it's not really something that I can transfer, but it's a global state of mind. There's no, it's no chance that I decided to start by that kind of career, by trying to be a competitive golfer, by trying to be one of the best in the world in one discipline. It turned out that it was golf, but it could have been anything else. And in my job today, the ambition that I have and the fact that I want to keep on evolving and get more and more responsibilities is not something that transferred from the golf, but it's something that I have in me. I think that is part of me, and that was the same in golf, and that kind of influenced my decision to try to be a professional athlete, and now is influencing the way I see my career and the way I see my path, rather than a transfer from one to the other.
And so speaking of the ambition, you went into the service center as a scheduler,
Yeah.
right? And then from there, what were the next couple of moves?
So it was next couple of months was the first day. I still remember that first day, and that's still something that I remember to this day. It was so basically the job of the scheduler. You were sitting in front of a screen, and it was still AS400, which was an old IT system where you didn't have a mouse. Like you type some letters to actually have the cursor move. It's like the green screen with the green letters, like.
Wow.
Pretty old school. And I remember, so you spend half the day on the phone and typing some keys. And so we spent the first day shadowing, right, with an experienced scheduler. And I remember telling myself at the end of the first day, like, I'm never going to manage that. It's impossible. What am I doing here? What is that? I'm never going to be able to use that. It's way too complicated for me, way too difficult. Mistake. You should never come back. And like a week after, it was so easy that we ended up with a friend that started at the same time as me, like wondering why everybody found it so difficult. But still we stayed in that position. I stayed in that position for 9 months. And then after that, I kind of moved up to being, it was like a technical account manager, something like that. So instead of scheduling those instances and those maintenance failure, I was in charge of an account and I was in charge of reporting to the customer, the global numbers and the global KPIs about the account. Did that for a couple of years. And then I went and moved up to what's called the service manager. So basically it's not just maintenance, but it's a bigger services that we provide customers. So that can have infrastructure services or service desk services, still over IT services, but like more global accounts, still quite operational and I've done that for 4 or 5 years. Took on some bigger contracts as time went on.
So what's a day in the life like of a
service manager?
Yeah.
You basically spend your day answering to the customer, telling you why it has gone wrong somewhere.
Okay.
It's a very reactive kind of job. It's not always the case, but basically when the company has a contract to oversee the service desk activities, let's say for a customer. So basically 10, 15,000 users, like maybe 500 calls to the service desk every day, trying to understand why they are calling, if there are some specific problems that happen all the time that you can point out or something like that. So half the time is about managing some escalations because one analyst at the service desk didn't pick up correctly or picked up late, or because the service desk itself is saturated and then users have to wait for 1.5 minutes before somebody picks up the phone, as the contract says you should pick up in 30 seconds.
Nice.
and stuff like that. There's also a lot of finance management, I would say, but like more on the internal side, but also on the invoicing side. So basically you make sure that the contract is healthy financially for your company, and you manage the invoice most of the time on a monthly basis, depending on whatever is signed in the contract. So whether it's the number of calls that arrive on the service desk or any kind of other metric that you can have. And apart from that, trying to see a bit of the future, trying to make the service evolve a little bit. But that's very little of it because, once again, most of the days you're just managing the day-to-day operations.
You're trying to deal with all the issues that come up.
Yeah, the day-to-day basis. Basically, you try to have the car that you're driving stay on the track, and you don't want to focus on when you need to pit or change the tires.
Do you have a team that you have to manage?
So at this point, it depends on the contract and it depends on the size of the contract.
Right.
So the bigger contract that I had, which was the one that I had when I did that for the last time, I had 80 people working for this customer that I was managing, depending on the different activities. So there was like 30 people in the service desk. There was about 30 on-site engineers, and then some engineers that work on the more back office side of things.
Oh my God.
So
how do you go about managing that many people?
First, you don't manage directly that many people. So I had like intermediate management levels.
Okay.
And just about as any kind of team, you start by trying to be a good human and understanding what issues they might have and trying to help them or be honest when you can't.
Yeah.
That's just about, yeah. I don't feel that's very different. If you have to manage, I would say I was about to say more than 10, but I know that a lot of people have to manage more than 10 people directly.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you have to manage directly more than 10 people, then it should be your only job.
Yeah.
Is just to be a manager. If you have any other kind of responsibilities, then the management that you are going to have over those 10 people, or unless they are very senior and don't really need any management and they just need some guidance at some point, then it might become a nightmare. But I've never had that kind of level of direct management. I don't think I've had more than 6 or 7 people that I would manage directly.
Right.
So, and when I had that, they were quite senior, so it was easier to deal with.
Can I ask you just about the management of people? Because obviously you started building relationships on the golf course, and managing people is one of the tricky things I think that we have in work, right? You can have a technical problem and have a technical solution and kind of you just work that out. But with people, you have emotions involved, you have logic involved, you have all sorts of personal circumstances, professional worries like, why aren't I progressing enough? And, I'm stressed about this sort of thing personally. Has there been any approach that you have found has been very useful for you, or anything you remind yourself if you're ever going into a tough meeting?
It's difficult. I don't want that to sound too simplistic, but to be honest, the most important thing for me is who you want to be as a human being. I've never seen myself as a manager of anyone, right? I've seen myself more as a guide, sometimes as a channel to express their opinions or their issues about anything. And whenever you deal with that kind of incoming solicitation from anyone, when it's incoming, it's just about, once again, trying to be the human that you want to be. Not if you put yourself in a position of I'm managing that person, I feel like can be some condescending feelings that will have a bias on the relationship and on the discussion that you have. Especially as I never came from an IT background. So whenever I faced, and especially when I started managing, I used to manage people that knew way more than I did about what they did on a day-to-day basis. And this is often a question that I had, like, well, how do you manage people that know more than you on that topic? Well, there's always going to be people that know more than you on any topic, right? Whether it's their job or not. How do you have a discussion with anyone that knows more than you about any topic, just about being understanding and trying to understand? And if you ask you a question of how we should do it, just trying to be as transparent as possible. And when you don't know much better than he or she does, just tell him, on the technical side, you know much more than I do. But on that side, is it possible that you can take a look at that or this and that? So yeah, this, once again, I don't want it to sound too simplistic, but who you want to be as a person, or who you try to be as a person. We were discussing before logging on about trying to be a better human. Who you want to be as a person, I think, has to guide how you are going to manage.
I think that's a great point. So you're connecting with them on a personal level, on a human level, and not on a manager. I know more than you.
And when it's incoming, so basically when they are coming to you with something, I think it's even more important than when you pass on information. Because when you pass on information as a manager, it has to be as neutral as possible. So you don't put yourself, it's about sharing information and sharing as much as you can.
Yeah.
When they come to you with any question, with any issue, whether it's, I want to have some holidays at that period, or this guy has told me that, or this person has told me this, and just how would you deal with it if it was your friend, or if it was your wife coming to you and asking and telling you an experience, right?
Yeah.
Just managing it in the same way.
I wonder, do you think some managers feel they need to know all the answers and then they nearly put themselves in that position? Whereas if they just said, to be honest, you probably know more than me, then
Yeah, but once again, it goes back to, and I don't think it's a good or a bad thing, right? Because some people feel like they need to know everything about a topic in order to be able to have a conversation about that topic. And, most of the time when you talk to somebody about something, they say, well, I don't know too much about that. I can't speak because I don't know too much.
Yeah.
And it's neither good nor bad. It's just how they feel comfortable about talking about something. So I feel like some people, when they are managing, need to know more than the people that work for them, because that's how they feel comfortable in addressing the situation and addressing the issue. I've never really been like that, because once again, going back to golf, when you're 13 years old and you spend 5 hours with somebody that's explaining you how he deals with his car dealership or the meeting that he's had last week or whatever, obviously you don't understand anything about it, but you still feel like it's still okay for them to talk to you about it. So whenever you feel like you have something relevant to say, you don't have to know every detail about every situation to kind of give your opinion. At least that's how I've built myself. Yeah. And therefore, this is who I want to be as a human being. And therefore, this is who I want to be as a manager.
Well, it sounds very liberating as a manager. It's like, okay, I don't need to know everything. I can have a conversation with you. Maybe I don't know the answer. Maybe I'll find the answer. Maybe you'll find the answer. And the golf is a great way. You have so many conversations like that. And I think the great thing about golf is you can always say, well, I have to go over here and hit that shot. So, which in my case is true. It's usually over.
Usually 2 fairways down.
Exactly. I have to go into the rough and hit a shot. I think that's a great point. So people, you can kind of let go of perfectionism. You're not a teacher or a trainer in that moment. You're a facilitator of the other person. So tell us, where did you go then after? So you get into a managerial position.
Yeah. So because, as I told you, as a service manager, I felt like it was impossible we were managing contracts, right? Like huge outsourcing contracts for 10 to 80,000 users with big corporations. So the target of my company is like really big corporations with at least 10,000 users. So that gives you an idea of the size of our customers and therefore the size of the contracts. And you sign contracts for like 3, 4, 5 years. And I've always felt like what we delivered from 1 year to the other was about the same as our standards were evolving, right? When you talk about the service desk 15 years ago and today obviously was very different. But even today and 3 years ago was very different, because every tooling solution, the technology obviously goes very fast and stuff like that. And I've always felt like it was a little bit frustrating not to be able to transform the experience as we were managing it, because we were too busy managing it. And so I had the opportunity to take a leadership position in that managed services business in the French part of the company that I worked for. And I decided that because of that, we were going, and I had the support from my boss at the time, we were going to create some kind of a team that would do that for our managed services. They would bring value to the contracts that we have, to actually have people from the outside whose job is not to just drive the car and stay on track, but it is actually to tell the driver in the helmet, now it's time to pit, now it's time to change the tires, right. Now it might be time to change the engine and to have an engine that goes a little bit faster and that is a little bit more efficient.
Right.
And because we were outside of the day-to-day operations, then it allowed us to implement some transformation.
Very
so
good.
Basically I did that. I led that team for 6 years. So what we used to be called the customer obsession teams, which was very difficult to explain to a 5-year-old, as we've had numerous conversations about.
This is the ongoing question.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I just really wanted to know how you explained your job to your boy.
This one was very complicated to explain, right? But even to explain it to my friends, I basically, whenever you don't work in IT, I explained it as whenever you have a mobile contract, right, for your phone, right? You have a contract with your operator and sign a contract for a year or for 2 years because you want to have access to a cheaper mobile. But the 2 years of contract, during those 2 years, the service that your operator is providing you, the standard will change, right? If you sign a contract today, you will have more gigabytes, you will have more access to applications, you will have more time to speak on the phone and everything like that. And for the same exact price as you paid 2 years ago, where you had less data, less applications, less access to whatever.
Right.
I've always felt it very frustrating that it's only when you renew the contract that they offer you all those new stuff that they provide to new users when they sign up during that time. So I feel like if it's a gradual change of your contract, and basically if your operator after 6 months tells you, well, you've signed 6 months ago for 50 gigs. Now our standard is 70, so we're going to give you 70 for the same exact price. I've always felt like this brought a lot of value to the relationship that you have with your operator. So basically, this was what my job was, or what my team's job was with our big outsourcing contracts. So instead of saying, well, the service desk, your users will only be able to phone the service desk, well, now you can give them access to the chat. You can give them access to some automation, to a portal, or to whatever we are going to set up.
Hi, folks. I just wanted to take a quick break from this interview to tell you that when I'm not recording podcasts, usually I'm doing individual career coaching sessions with my clients, professionals just like you. So what do we do in these sessions? Well, we help people to understand their value, to create a compelling career vision, to find interesting jobs, to create applications that they're proud of, and to learn how to sell themselves in an interview in a way they feel comfortable. So if you're interested in doing individual career coaching sessions, please reach out to me and we can book a session as soon as possible. Thanks so much. Now, let's get back to that interview. So you go from working on the very operational, right, day to day, trying to figure out all the problems and issues and firefight to some extent, to more working strategically on the business.
Yeah.
Did you find that more interesting?
Yeah, much more, because the way I trying to imagine what the future looks like is absolutely fascinating, right? Because you never get it right.
Yeah.
But when you do, you feel like a genius.
Yeah.
I was about to swear. I'm cautious about the language that I use, but I'm French, so you can give me a pass if some bad words slip out.
It's fine.
But it's great. Like you kind of said, like 2 years ago, we thought that this would be the future, and now look at that, we're implementing that for our customers. How cool is that? And I've always thought that it was much more matching my personality than managing the day-to-day issues or the day-to-day escalations.
Right. Like it's very growth orientated, it's innovative, it's creative, it's all that sort of stuff that you love, right? The strategizing.
Yeah, the creative aspect mostly. It's to be honest, it's more creative than it is innovative, because I've never been a technical person. It was never really about technical aspects.
Right.
Basically, the technical people came after, because we kind of thought, well, this is how it should be, how it should happen, taking some inspiration from everyday life or from anything else. And then the technical guys kind of figure out if it's possible or not.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So, like, I suppose when I think of the strategic thing or the creative part, for me, that feels like something you might work through for a month. And because I don't really understand your day-to-day, the way it works out. But I was just imagine strategy is something you kind of think of maybe at the start of the year, you set goals, you make a plan, and then it's kind of done. But I guess you're rolling out the projects, you're implementing it as well, and you're dealing with challenges, strategy challenges along the way.
Yeah. And bear in mind that it's not just us trying to imagine what the future of service desk will look like.
Yeah.
It's also our customers and their end user and their environment that is changing all the time.
Right.
And especially as I've done that before COVID, through COVID, after COVID, I mean, it was an incredibly inspiring period. It was very tough, don't get me wrong. But for the job that we did, it was incredible, the source of change that it created and how it shifted people's mind and people's mindset about what was possible, about the remote working or not, about the remote support or not, about what was secure, what wasn't, the digitalization of the world, how much it accelerated. And it was a great period to actually work on that, but it's ever changing. Yeah. And just as well as, once again, your operator kind of makes you available 50 gigs and 60 gigs and 70 gigs. And like almost on a monthly basis, all those changes also happen on a monthly basis. And also, not all our customers are on the same level.
Right.
So basically, my team's job was to make sure that they had the strategy for their customer. And on that aspect, you're right. It's more like a yearly plan. So basically, we do that for a year. We set up a plan. This is what we are going to do. This is where we want to go. This is where you are. This is the projects that we are going to try to implement. And you deal on an everyday basis with, well, this project was planned at this time. We don't have the budget anymore. Or our strategic leadership has changed its position, or our users are moving from one thing to the other, or whatever can happen on the environment of a company like that. And my job as the leader of that team was to make sure that I kind of took a bit of a higher view on what the future could look like more globally, that I shared that with my team, that we had exchanges with my team, that I confronted the ideas that were more higher view with the day-to-day constraints of our customers. Like, this is really good, but this is not possible in that kind of environment. This is possible in that kind of environment. Also having customers talk to each other. We used our team as a relay to actually have meetings where you have people from Michelin, people from Air Liquide, and people from Sodexo talk to each other about how they manage their end user. This is probably the most fascinating aspect, where you have companies that really don't care about their end users, like really don't care. Like, it has to be cheap and that's it. Right. And companies that put their end users on a pedestal, like they don't really care if it costs more, as long as their user experience is important. I won't tell you, I've named a few customers. I won't tell you which is which.
You don't need to tell me which is which, but I would like to know what your thoughts are on, okay, we'll just do the absolute cheapest versus we'll put them on a pedestal.
Well, I mean, as a human being, if I'm a customer of that company at some point, it will influence my choices.
Yeah, of course.
Let's put it like that.
But as if you put your business hat on, and you think
all of those choices make sense.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say, I don't want to give out too many clues, but let's say the COVID over the past 6 years, so before, during, after, the COVID impacted some companies more than others.
Yeah.
So because some companies, and some of those really big companies, really struggle to stay alive, then at some point you understand that their main purpose is to stay alive. They can tell whatever they want on the market, and create some very inspiring purpose for their end user more publicly. But for those 2 years, their main purpose was to stay alive. And we're talking about companies that have more than 100,000 employees, right? So
that's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it's a big deal for countries. It's a big deal. I would even say it's a big deal on the planet, right? When you have a company that employs 200,000 people all across the world, you understand that the stakes are bigger than the experience that you have with your MacBook at work, right?
Yeah,
it's just about staying alive. Just the fact that you have access to a MacBook is good. Right?
Yeah.
And other companies during that period, they thrived for many reasons. And COVID didn't impacted them that much because of their line of business, because of how they were built, because of how they operated on a day-to-day basis. Some companies actually saved some money because they saved some money on travel and their business was not impacted. And therefore, coming out of that, they have other challenges to retain their employees, to attract some talents and stuff like that. So depending on the industry. And then you understand that their user is their priority. But I've had this discussion many times with the customers. And this is why having the strategy and trying to understand what the future is going to look like for everyone is almost impossible, because there are as many cases as there are companies, as there are employees. But as long as the story that you are telling to your service provider, but more globally, is matching your strategy, then it's going to become relevant.
Right.
So telling your service provider that your main target is to stay alive and that your IT budget needs to be cut by 30%, and therefore that everything as part of that IT budget needs to be cut at least 30%, makes the story relevant, and for a service provider to actually provide the service for 30%. or 30% less.
Yeah.
At the opposite, struggling to retain some talents, struggling to hire some people because of an image or because of whatever, and wanting to have the best experience for you end user and make it through whatever IT services you provide also makes sense. But you have to be very straightforward about it, and you have to set your strategy straight.
Oh, it's so complex, isn't it?
I don't feel like it's complex. I feel like some jobs are much more complex than that. But it's because I've done that for 6 years, and to be honest, I really like that part.
Yeah, well, I can get it. I can get the enthusiasm from your explanations, but you're balancing so many different priorities and trying to think of, improving the end user's experience or cutting costs. And then you're trying to keep your service centers on board and manage your team and keep them engaged and align them to a vision and still keep an eye on the future. Like, for me, it sounds just like an overwhelming amount of
But
moving
it kind of
parts.
answers your question too. Oh, you do it once a year and then you wait for the next year, right? So it's
a very comprehensive answer.
Going back to your question,
Yeah.
this is why it's not just a once a year.
So now I can have a very comprehensive overview. So I can definitely see why that's a full-time and all the rest job, right? There's a ton in that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just thinking, like, when you think of yourself as a 18-year-old or in your 20s and you're playing golf and you're thinking, yeah, this is my passion, this is what I love. And then you listen to yourself now and you're speaking very passionately about, being creative at work and looking towards the future and managing a team and working with all these end users. Like, are you surprised that you enjoy this and that you get so much energy and enthusiasm for this now? Or did you always feel like, I don't know, people are at the center of what you do?
I have mixed feelings about that, to be honest, because and I don't want to get too much in the therapy aspect of it, but when I was a kid, my dad worked in IT, right? My dad was a CIO of a French company, and I just as any normal kid, I had my phases where I wanted to do the exact same thing that my father did, and then I hated it because he traveled all the time and he was never at home, and so I said, well, I never want to do that. Times where you play golf, she said, I never want to work in an office, and this is why I want to be a professional athlete. And then, so I feel what I know for sure is that my 18-year-old self was not mature enough to imagine all that. And therefore, how I feel about it today is a combination of everything that I've gone through in the past 25 years and the successes and the failures and becoming a parent and trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good human and everything like that. And how I think about life, how I think about the company, right. how I always try to see the big picture. I feel like the passion that I may have over those aspects is more related to a passion about seeing the big picture, like trying to understand, not seeing a situation for what it is in a very short-sighted view, but trying to take a higher view on something and trying to understand why is that company acting like that, and try to put it in the context of their strategy, trying to put it in the context of the world. Just exactly the same as I would do with my 7-year-old when he has something at school, right? Like put it in the context of the whole thing.
Yeah. It's like a 3D view or a 360 view.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that, like, if we went back to when we were, 16, 17, 18, you're trying to make career choices. And if you look at, let's say, your job or my job now, and it in a very black and white way on a piece of paper, you'd kind of probably go, yeah, I'm not sure.
And there's no way either of our job is a dream job for a 16-year-old, right?
Right.
That never happens.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm always I feel a lot of admirations for people that age that kind of have their eyes set on a very adult job, right? My 7-year-old wants to be a professional footballer or a Lamborghini driver, right? This is the kind of job that you dream to have when you're a kid. Sometimes when you're 16-year-old, you want to be an actor, you want to be a pop star, you want to be a professional athlete, you want to be an artist, right? But I don't think you want to be a career coach, or I don't think you want to be a clown director as I am today.
So.
And yet, there are much more people that do the job that we do today than there are some professional athletes or some artists and stuff like that. Because I feel like, and a lot of people like us are happy with that path. Because I feel like it's a way, this doesn't come by chance. It comes by opportunity sometimes, but also the opportunity is just the start, right? It's just the ignition. All the rest comes by some kind of a build-up, right? It's exchanges and discussion and reflection that you have on what you do that actually takes you to the place where we are today. So of course, the 18-year-old would just look at me and say, well, you're just doing just like your father did. You stupid person.
Oh, yeah, you were very you were very harsh when you were 18.
And maybe that 18-year-old would be disappointed about what it is. But the 43-year-old now is actually glad that I've gone through all those changes, because it made me who I am as a human being. And I think I'm a better human being today than I ever was. That I was 5 years ago, that I was for sure at 18 years old, because I have that, at least I hope I have that kind of same thing, higher view on things and on how it actually became the way it is today.
Yeah, but isn't it also like when you get closer to the environment, or like as you said, as you move through it, you kind of get closer, you understand things better. But can't you also like see what you enjoy and see what's fun about it, or see what's interesting about it? Whereas, when you're removed from it, you're just kind of looking at all these options, kind of go, I don't know about any of these.
Yeah, I feel like it's also a lot of cycles, right? And about excitement when you take a new position. There's like fear, then there's excitement, then there's stability, and then I think it slowly comes down to a little bit, maybe not boredom, but less excitement, right?
Like a product life cycle.
Yeah, because I guess what we do is a bit like that, right? At least, and this is how I felt it. This is also the reason why I didn't want to stay a golf teacher my whole life or a golf professional my whole life, because I felt like that cycle was coming around the corner. And even in the job that I described, which was my last job, I kind of felt that, like that slope down to boredom over the past couple of years, where it was urgent for me to kind of try to start a new challenge. And no matter how passionate I am about the whole thing, when you've done something for a certain amount of time, I feel like, you that higher view that we were talking about becomes a bit too high, and therefore you kind of lose interest, maybe.
Yep. I have a theory that the same way our cells change every 7 years, or we change physically every 7 years, that we might need a mental change every 6 or 7 years. And if you think about your golf career, not too far off that sort of shift. And I found that as well.
Don't they say that love lasts for 7 years? So do you think it's the same for love?
I don't know.
I've been married for more than that, so hopefully some cycles last more than that. But
oh, fantastic! I hope your wife's listening in.
I hope she will listen. I hope she listens all the way to this point, to be honest.
But you're still together, so that's a great sign. Have you taken us up to your current role?
So I've started on the January 1st. So I've been a month in the new job, which is the title is client director. So basically, I've moved on to the sales part. So I lead a team of account managers that sell IT equipment and IT services to one of the biggest airplane manufacturer on the planet. So
that's a big deal.
Let's leave it at that.
That's fantastic. So the client director, so you're just driving the sales team, you're trying to improve commercial results.
Yeah.
Are you working with clients yourself?
Yeah.
So you one-to-one contact?
Yeah. So basically, but not to get too much into details, but depending on the business lines that we work on, and depending on the lines of business also. So we have different activities. What we call source products. So basically, when you want to buy laptops or want to buy servers or cables or whatever related to IT, this is part of our activity. We have some transform activities, basically consulting and expert services around IT. And then we have some management, which was the part that I was working on before.
Right.
And as a client director, you oversee the whole scope, but the account manager focus most on the sourcing part and on the transforming part. And as a client director, I oversee the whole thing, and then I lead directly the managed aspect of it. So whenever we have a big RFP for some managed services for this contract, I lead it directly. But the rest of the time, I kind of try to guide my team.
Super. Can I ask, what do you enjoy most about your role? I know you've only been in it like a month or 6 weeks at this stage, but
there's a few things. First, I really enjoy the industry of the customer that we are working on. What's quite specific is that I do that job for only one customer and that's usually as a client director, you manage more of a sector, like the finance sector and all our customers in the finance sector or stuff like that. But because that customer is so big for us, then there's only one. So I really like the industry. I really like the airspace industry. I think it's really interesting to see how they are going to tackle the challenges in the coming years with the sustainability aspect and stuff like that, and how we as IT providers support them in doing that. I think is really interesting. It's as a company like ours, it's we don't save lives, right? Like we just provide computers and servers and services around that to companies. So like basically, if I don't show up to my job tomorrow morning, nobody's going to die, nobody's going to miss anything or anything like that. But our customers actually do, and our customers actually face some really, really interesting challenges. And I feel like the airspace aspect and the airplane manufacturers, more specifically in the coming years, are going to face some really interesting challenges about their net zero, the new energy planes and stuff like that. So this is something that is really, really interesting. So how we support that, I think is really interesting.
I know. I can't wait to see where that goes. Like, how are they gonna transfer or translate to net zero?
And they're on the right path. So, which is, I think, absolutely fascinating. The airplane manufacturers actually might manage it before the car manufacturers.
What?
Which is crazy when you think about it. But their stakes are so high, and I also believe that there are less manufacturers. So because there are less manufacturers, then the market is a little bit different. You have less financial constraints about being relevant now and today. They're very optimistic about the fact that by 2040, the green energy planes might not be flying, but will be built. So that's
wow.
Quite exciting.
That's very cool to be so close to such a innovative space. And also I wonder how the planes will go. Like, will cars are getting more and more driverless. Planes have had autopilot for a long time.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the drones program are also, but I mean, on the military aspect, the drones programs have been very developed for the past even 20 years, to be honest. Some of those war planes have been drones for at least 10 years now, and now pilotless. So I guess that if you can fly a plane from a operational command center during a war, I don't see why or how you could not do it, transporting passengers on a very safe airspace.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, that sounds super fun. I can definitely see why you're interested.
Yeah, and so that's the first point, and the second point is that I'm directly in sales. I've always been working close to the sales teams, but I've been wanting for the past 2 or 3 years to be directly involved into the sales process. So that also for me is exciting. Like part of the I'll never make it about the first few weeks that the challenges were a little bit difficult, but now I'm getting out of that fear phase and coming to the excitement part of it. So I'm really excited about developing that, developing a commercial relationship with a company, with such a big company, on such an account, with such a sizable account. I think is also very interesting.
Challenging, but very exciting, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you make it big or you miss big, but there's no in between.
Fantastic. So Philippe, could I ask you, if you're just before we finish up, right? If you're talking to your if you're going back and you're talking to your 18-year-old self or even your 20-year-old self, right? You're trying to figure out careers, you're trying to figure out jobs, world of work. Is there any piece of advice you'd give to reassure that person, to give them confidence, or to help steer them in the right direction?
I'm not sure I'd say anything. I'm not a person to have too many regrets, right? I've made some mistakes in my life on every level possible, whether it's personal, professional, but I feel like I've learned from any of it. And from every mistake that I've made, I feel like those have helped me become, hopefully today, a better person. Of course, when you look back at it, I mean, as a kid, I would have loved to be more, and even as a teenager, to be more exposed to some art that I appreciate today, that I wasn't too exposed to it when I was a kid. So of course, I would have liked that. Maybe I could tell myself, well, you should dig deeper a little bit into the music that I really love. And, but in a way, all of this was probably meant to be anyway, right? So the steps that I've taken, I've never been constrained by anyone or anything. I've been very fortunate in my life that I never had to make a choice that wasn't actually a choice. I've been supported by my family. I've been raised in a loving family. Like if you want to write a book, there's not going to be enough plot, right? Like it's going to be too boring and everything is too simple. So because of that, I felt like I've always made my choices with enough information to make the choices. Of course, if you know what happens next, then you can say, well, this is going to happen. But yeah, you know what? The thing that happened actually took me to this place today, talking to you about all those years and the career path that I've taken and the choices that I've made. Who knows what would have happened? I'm not. I don't know enough about the multiverse aspect and quantum physics to know if maybe in another universe there's another version of me into music or into painting or into whatever.
Right.
But say I'm pretty happy about the person that I am today. So going back to your question, I'll just probably say, right. So
yeah, that's great.
There'll be some tough things, but
I think that's a great perspective, like reassuring that you have everything you go through, everything you've gone through, all the problems you have, they help to build you as a person. So it's not to look back and say, well, now that I know what I know now,
it's very easy, right? Once you get the answers to the tests, it's very easy to make some different choices. And once again, I want to emphasize on the fact that I've been very fortunate in my life that there was nothing that was really like a constraint, really hard. I've been very fortunate. So I can definitely understand that for people that have been less fortunate than I was, then that reaction and what you are going to tell your 18-year-old self might be different because there could be some traumatic experiences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough not to have those.
Yeah.
So that obviously changes my
that
perspective.
Changes everything. Absolutely. Life's like in golf, you can only play the shot that you have in front of you.
Exactly.
Right? So
just
to circle back
you
to
can only play
golf
with the cards that you have been dealt with, right?
So there we've got a card analogy, we've got a golf analogy. I think
pick whichever you prefer.
Exactly. So look, thanks so much for taking the time today to chat to us and tell us about your journey from golf to IT service centers and every bit on the way. A pleasure as always. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Ron.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. It was a great time. Thank you.
Hi folks, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more of these soon, please subscribe and support the channel. Thanks so much.